Howdy, good morning. Welcome to a Tuesday edition. Morning Scone presented by Brock, Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, and Hudco Roofing. HudcoRoofing.com. Facebook, do us a solid there. Like the page, share the post, like the page, share the post, like the page, share the post. If you're there on YouTube, please subscribe and smash the like button. So Texas and Oklahoma, as expected, they formally give notice to the Big 12 that they will not renew their grant rights, which means they will leave the Big 12 upon conclusion of that contract in 2025. That is assuming the Big 12 still exists in 2025. Now, the reason the timing is interesting is you have to give 18 months notice, which means theoretically, as of today, or yesterday, Monday, Texas and OU giving that notice means for the 2023 season, they could be in the SEC. But if they did that, they'd be leaving their contract 2 years early, which means they'd have to forfeit their media rights for those 2 years. And that would amount to about a $75 million penalty each for Texas and OU. So instead of saying, all right, we're going to forfeit that, they're saying, we'll stay for the duration of this deal in 2025, unless the landscape of college football changes, basically saying, unless the Big 12 doesn't exist anymore and this contract is void and we just go whatever we want, which may very well happen. All right, let's say some good mornings. Also a busy day for the Saints. They added the defensive lineman that nobody's ever heard of. They also did sign Chris Hogan, the wide receiver, 33 years old. He can't be the answer, but we'll see what direction they might go. All right, let's say some good mornings here. If y'all got anything, fire away. Jason Aguilar, good morning. Hey, Dad, good morning. Chris Keller, Kurt Taylor, good morning. Could be a hot one. Already is. Tim Henderson, good morning. Jason Aguilar, Taco Tuesday. Can't say the other because it's a family show. Terrific Tuesday. Chris Keller, saw one of the sports talk shows that the ACC president should get with the SEC about combining. So that was Jay Billis who mentioned that, but he's one of about a bajillion. If you did not hear our interview yesterday with Chip Brown of Horns 247, I would highly recommend you go back and listen. It was the beginning of hour 3. So if you're on YouTube, you can go to the Watch 1045 ESPN YouTube channel, see it there. Or you can go to 1045ESPN.com and listen, or however you get your podcast. But basically, where we're headed, undeniably, is the decentralization of college football. It means it will not be under NCAA control. It will be run autonomously by the schools, who collectively will need to get together and create a structure and probably appoint like a commissioner of college football. But that's something that's going to happen. Bye, babe. Have a good day. So how does that look? Is it, I guess my point is the idea of the ACC joining the SEC is kind of moot, because however this is mind-blowing for some people, but you have to allow yourself to think outside of the pretenses that you understand that govern college football. Like, there's the Power Five and the Group of Five, and there's a college football playoff committee, and you have to think outside of that. Like, think NFL. What if there is a college football league that has 32 teams in it? There's no SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big East, Big 10, Pac 12. There's none of that. I mean, maybe some of like the divisions call themselves that, whatever, but like you have to think outside of that because that's where we're headed. In the interim, could the SEC go to 20? Maybe. I mean, do they add Florida State or Clemson or like? I know Greg Sankey is looking forward. Dylan Landry, good morning. Reagan Lee, what are your personal thoughts on them joining? I love it. Come on. It's all about strength and power and stability, and come on. Of course, I would love to see LSU play Texas and Oklahoma more. Why not? Tim Gotro, Joey Vincent, Pat Huseman, good morning. Alex Day, Sankey for college football commissioner. You know what's interesting? In Sankey's first year as commissioner, LSU and Florida walked all over him with that Hurricane Matthew postponement thing. And I think that was a great lesson for him. He even, if you saw his interview on AFR at Media Days, he even joked about that. But he has become a really forward-thinking, progressive commissioner, just like Roy Kramer and Mike Slive, who preceded him. And yeah, I think that would be good for college football. Kenneth Martin, morning Matthew, morning Brock, morning Hudko, morning number 15. Matt, how is it going to help hurt LSU in recruiting when this happens? I don't think it matters at all. Like, if you don't think you're already battling and recruiting with Texas and Texas A&M, I mean, whatever. You already go into Texas and get players. Texas and Texas A&M come into Louisiana and get players. I don't think it matters. Maybe I'm naive, but I mean, you could talk about like when A&M got in the league, they went into New Orleans and got Speedy Noel. That's true. And LSU's gone into Texas and gotten Jamal Adams and Caleb Von Chasson and Grant Delpit. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, every year LSU's going to sign 25 really good players. Matt, will Texas most likely belong to the SC East, being A&M is West? Where would Oklahoma be placed? Again, you've got to get outside of your thinking of East and West. That's not going to happen. What is more likely is you're going to see a pod structure. Four-team pods where you play the 3 teams in your pod every year, and then 2 teams each from the other 3 pods. You go to a 9-game conference schedule. So 3 in your pod, and then 2 from the other 3 pods, or 2. And then those 2 in the other 3 pods rotate every year. So in a 4-year cycle, you would play in every venue in the SEC, and every school in the SEC would play at your stadium in a 4-year cycle. So if you go to school and you play 4 years, you will play in every school, every venue in the SEC, and everybody will play at you. I love that. It's perfect. Jesse Brown, Matt, do you think Hogan can be impactful for the Saints? No. Trivia Carter, good morning. Scott McClendon, with the SEC being the premier football league out there, Sankey is one step closer to becoming the czar of college football. SEC rules. I do think that when that inevitable day comes, if Greg Sankey is still in his role as SEC commissioner, then I think he would be the most obvious choice to be a college football commissioner. I don't know that we see that in the next 2 to 5 years. So I think it's more of a question of, is Sankey still around at that time? Trivia, used to listen to Chip Brown in Austin. Chip and Chad show 104.5 The Horn. So Chip Brown, just so you know, and I mentioned this on air yesterday, I don't know that anybody heard it, but so Chip Brown 10 years ago, when the last round of realignment happened. He was the guy who was breaking every story as it related to realignment with every team, regardless of conference. And the reason, primarily, is because Texas was at the center of it. It started with the Big Ten making a push to get Texas. Texas and OU flirted with the Pac-12 about creating. The Pac-12 had a mind on creating a super conference, a 16-team super conference. They inquired with the SEC. But basically, because Texas was at the center of every discussion, Chip Brown was the one breaking news about every league. So he is, and here we are again. So he's very much a at the forefront of all of those conversations. So that's a source that I would very, very much trust with respect to anything realignment. Michael Castello from Savannah, Georgia, home of the Savannah Bananas. Tim Gotro, can't imagine the remaining Big 12 schools are just going to wait around for Texas and OU to walk. The rest of the schools have to be looking to jump ship too by now. Absolutely. And listen, they could try to add membership to sustain the Big 12, but the reality is you're not going to be able to add any school that's going to keep you among the Power Five. Like, you can't lose Texas and Oklahoma and replace them with SMU and Houston and think that you're going to maintain your status. So the schools that have the option likely jump. Is Oklahoma State attracted to the Pac-12? Maybe. Is Baylor? Maybe. Is Kansas attractive to the Big Ten because of basketball? Maybe. I don't know. Is West Virginia appealing to the ACC? Maybe. But I think those schools definitely look at those options. Absolutely. Michael Castello, if you do the pod system, does that create a semifinal prior to the SEC championship? Unlikely. You're not going to add another game. You just play the SEC championship game with the top two teams in the conference. But the thing that I would tell you is you might not need an SEC championship game. It's like in the NFL. Do you need division championship games? Whoever's got the best record wins the division. I mean, the SEC championship game is a money grab. It always was. It was just an opportunity at another TV window to sell and an opportunity to sell tickets to a game, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a money grab. It's completely unnecessary. I mean, you play a regular season for a reason. You don't need a championship game. They didn't exist for 100 years before 1992. So Roy Kramer was just smart and found a way to generate more revenue. But you don't need conference championship games. Again, you got to start thinking outside of how we've all been programmed to view college football. Ronnie Dugas, would Alabama be in our pod? No, with the SEC network flashed on SEC this morning last week. I'm going with that because, it's the SEC network. It would be LSU, A&M, and the Mississippi schools. And then Texas, OU, Arkansas, Missouri, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and then Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky. How long do you think Texas and OU have been talking to the SEC? Reports are it's been about 6 months. I believe that. Didn't Oklahoma learn about the SEC when we beat the brakes off of them? I mean, they also have beaten Alabama in the semifinals in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, you can't deny the fact that they've had success. And by the way, 2019 LSU beat the crap out of everybody. Kirk, rumblings on the game at the Rose Bowl being moved, valid or not? I have not heard that, Kirk. And I had the last conversation I had about that was over the weekend. And everything still seemed in line. If anything, Kirk, I think what would be more likely is if that game were played, it would be played at the Rose Bowl with no fans. That would be my guess. But I'm praying that doesn't happen. Matt Gudo, Tony Williams, Scotty Mack, what's up? Wanda Morgan, good morning. Kelly Gross, good morning. Stephen Miller, good morning. When will enough be enough? Prevent from watering down the SEC. Do you think adding Texas and Oklahoma is watering down the SEC? Come on, bro. And it's, again, I'll go back to it. It's not about just adding teams to the SEC. We're heading toward the inevitability of creating a completely new college football league or whatever you want to call it. Like Power 5, Group of 5, that's not going to exist anymore. I mean, you're going to have an autonomous college football league which more resembles the NFL, where you have the top 32 or 64, like if it's all the teams in the current Power 5 or maybe a few less or a few more, I don't know. But because if you think of it this way, the NFL, right? Okay, the NFL, the 32 teams together collectively sell their media rights to Fox, to CBS, to ESPN, streaming rights, right? The 32 NFL teams collectively sell. If the top 64 college football teams all collectively got together and sold their media rights collectively, it would blow the NFL's number out of the water because of the amount of content you would have and the amount of, you're bringing in fan base from the entire nation at that point. So that's where we're headed, where you're going to collectively bring college football together and sell it as college football instead of SEC selling their rights and ACC selling their rights and Big Ten selling their rights and Pac-12, right? That's going to go away. Brandon English, good morning. Jonathan Martin, good morning. Brandon, I got to reply to your email. I'm sorry about that, man. Jonathan Martin, LSU Terrell Wild, Shelby Kelly, thoughts on the Simone Biles situation. Did she win? Because they're doing that this morning, right? I don't know what happened. I know they were competing like 5 a.m., right? Oh, no, she's out. That's a bummer. Oh, that sucks. Well, she's fun to watch, man. If that's her last hurrah, sucks it goes down that way, but how many of the greats actually get to go out on top on their own terms? Gray Schuler, good morning. Brandon English, I think the Oklahoma trip would be a nice one. Yeah, man, look, LSU's already got a home-and-home schedule with Oklahoma. Might as well just be a conference game now. Larry Cavalier, good morning. Kirk Taylor, baseball, softball, gymnastics, going to be insane. Yup. Kenny Doran, how does this affect recruiting LSU? Kenny answered it a little bit ago. I'm not sure if you heard someone else ask that. Maybe I'm naive. I just don't think it does. I think LSU will still get players out of Texas. I think Texas A&M still cherry pick players in Louisiana. You've seen A&M come here and get players. You've seen Texas come here and get players. And likewise, you've seen LSU go there and get players. So I think you just, just keep on. Jeremy Brinkmeyer, if it was quiet for 6 months, how did it get out today? Then find out and leak it. Jeremy, that's my guess that A&M leaked it. Because, look, Ross Bjork, the A&M AD, was the only athletic director at SEC Media Days. And the news got leaked by the Houston Chronicle 10 minutes before Jimbo Fisher took the podium. Like, it was a little calculated. Chuck Sanchez, what's up, Chuck? Get it? Up, Chuck? Matt Mayon, good morning from Morgan City. Kirk Taylor pods are done. No, they're not. It's actually it's way better than the stupidity we have now where you play 8 conference games and you can go 14 years without playing a school in the SEC. The format now is absurd. You're brainwashed if you think what we have now is good. What we have now sucks. LSU hasn't played at Georgia since 2013. LSU hasn't played at Kentucky since 2007. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. All to marry yourself to Bama, Tennessee, and Auburn, Georgia. Stupid. Father John David Mathern, good morning. Charlie Cavell, if the SEC goes to 18, who do you think the next two? If they were going to go beyond these two, I think they would go Clemson, Florida State. Because at this point now, you're just about adding brands. You're about adding power brands that will grow the value of your league. In 2011, it was about adding to your TV footprint before you launched the SEC network. Well, now you have distribution on every cable provider in America. So it's not about TV distribution. Now it's about brand awareness that accentuates your brand. So it would have to be Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, Florida State, like USC. It would have to be a brand name, college football brand names like that have that cachet. Kelly Presley, good morning. Stephen Miller, how much money will Texas OU dish out money to get into the SEC by 2022? So they can't be in 2022, Stephen, because they've got to wait 18 months. So 2023 would be realistically the earliest they could be. The 2023 season would be the earliest they could be in the league. So 2023 season, and if they did that and broke their grant of rights, they would owe the balance of their grant of rights for their contract, which would be 2 years, which amounts to about $75 million each. Will Wentz, so with the Pods, who goes to, again, talked about that already. And no, they would not have a conference semifinal. There's no way they would add they would add another game to the schedule. If anything, you would look at like contracting the regular season, getting rid of the garbage non-conference games to add to the playoff, which is, again, look at the NFL. I mean, yes, the NFL added a regular season game, so they had another TV window, but last year the NFL added to the playoffs. It's all about adding another TV window. Brian and Andy Pinton, good morning. Any word on Brandon Cooks coming back to the Saints? Not really. It was a Twitter rumor that I would really, really hope comes true. I would love to see Brandon Cooks back. And if the Saints did the same deal, so when LA traded Cooks to Houston, they traded Brandon Cooks and a 4 for a 2. I would send a 2 to Houston for Cooks and a 4 in a heartbeat. Mark, if vaccine passports are proof of vaccination, will be part of LSU football attendance or Saints attendance, I'm out. I don't believe they are, Mark. I don't know how you can, the Saints have already said they're not going to ask for proof of vaccination. Hang on one second. Hey, Drew's backpack. Hang on. As always, y'all shout out to Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. Of course, you need an orthopedist, you go to Brock. You need a roof, you call HUDCO. Super pumped, man. HUDCO's doing awesome. Just blown away by the support we've gotten in such a relatively short amount of time. So, free, no obligation roofing inspection. We'd love it if you give us an opportunity. HUDCOroofing.com. Let's see. Mark, Pelicans big trade with Grizz. Talked about that yesterday on the show. So, Jonas Valanciunas coming to New Orleans. Big. He's a floor spacing big. I like it. And by the way, something to file away, because the Pels basically they traded the 10th and 41st pick for Steven Adams, Bledsoe, and a protected 2022 first rounder from the Lakers in exchange for Valanciunas. And then the number 17 pick, I think the number 51 pick in this year's draft. Because the Pels effectively moved from 10 to 17 in round 1 this year, they could be in play for Cam Thomas. Y'all file that away. Like, I don't think they would have pulled the trigger at 10. He could very much be in play at 17. The Pels need shooting. They absolutely need shooting. They need dudes that can score the basketball. And he's probably going to be on the board at 17. Like, that's going to be a very interesting decision, and I would really like it a lot. Charlie Cavell, I vote for Timmy B. How about that, man? Maybe I'll get Timmy B on the show today. Who did Pelicans draft Thursday in the NBA? File away, man. File it away. You may see Cameron Thomas. Where are we? Let's see. Let's see, trivia. The pods on the SC network seem pretty even. Two tough teams, too easy. Yeah. I mean, and you also preserve some of the stupid rivalry games that not everybody, but that the league seems to care about. Ghastly Gamer, you're acting like it will just be one conference or league, but there are still going to be, at very least, 2 mega conferences. Ghastly Gamer, again, you've got to understand what I'm saying. Of course, if you have a big structure, you're going to have to break down geographically how you do it, just like in the NFL where you have divisions. But people are you're thinking of it in terms of what's the SEC, what's the ACC, like that only matters because you have autonomy within that league, right? The SEC, as it exists now, goes and sells its media rights collectively. It's why you have this giant chasm of 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 earnings, of revenue, where the Big Ten and the SEC earn more than 200 million more than the next closest league per year. Like, that's going to stop. You're going to put everyone collectively into one big package and sell it all in total. So how you break down the structure of playing games is one thing, but you're talking about but what I'm talking about is, or what you're concerned about is the SEC better than the ACC? Like, that's irrelevant. It's like saying, well, is the NFC South better than the AFC West? It's irrelevant. The division champions all go to the playoffs, right? I mean, that's the objective of what they're doing here. Mark Allen, if you don't like change, you better not watch college football for a while. Changes here, bro. Michael Phelps and Usain Bolt ended out on top. So did John Elway. Some do. It's just rare. Did you see the tape on Tulane's quarterback Pratt? He's showing some excellent talent. I did not. Zachary Prey, good morning. Todd Ohms, Matt J. Bill said the ACC needs to jump board and merge the SEC. Your thoughts? Todd, someone already asked about that, and I did address it. They should all be looking for those partnerships and relationships. But again, the inevitability where we're heading is that there is going to be a college football collective. I mean, that's what's going to happen. It's not going to look like it does anymore, where you have all these individual conferences with their own media rights under the NCAA's ban. It's going to be one college football. So, think about it. If you were USC, Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, Oklahoma, Clemson, Florida State, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Florida, A&M, and you're all of these schools, and you collectively come together and go sell your media rights. Basically, think of all the rights deals that are done right now with in college football. You have all Big Ten, Pac-12, ACC, SEC, Big 12, all of the media rights deals. Now, imagine the best of those conferences came together and said, okay, we're one thing now. How much ESPN? How much Fox? That's the point. That's what they're going to do. Jeremy Turner, 31.9 billion. Texas can create a pod with Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and Little Sisters of the Poor. How you account for tiebreakers and existing rivalries. This is why I didn't like realignment the first time. It took some of the magic away from college football, not playing Auburn every year. Hey, Kirk, you realize LSU didn't play Auburn every year until the 1980s? And the magic of college football, you didn't think 2019 was special? 2019 wasn't magical just because A&M was in the league and Missouri was in the league? Come on, man. The magic of, that for me is the biggest farce. The line that college football fans have been sold for so long about the pageantry of college football and the history and traditions are what make it special. Bull crap. What makes it special is that you love your school and you're passionate about your school. And whoever the hell they play, you're going to be fired up. 100,000 people walk their happy asses into that stadium to watch LSU play Samford. There's going to be 100,000 people that watch LSU play McNeese. Is that special? Is that the pageantry of college football? That's garbage. You know what that is? That's a gate receipt for the home team. That's a TV window. That's all that is. And they've convinced you that matters. No, it don't. The pageantry of college. The magic. You see what I'm talking about, Kirk? You're talking about, you're glorifying an intangible. Like, you know what I care about? I care about LSU going to Austin in 2019 and playing that freaking game. That had nothing to do with SEC, conferences, realignment. That was just a phenomenal college football game with two blue bloods. And I don't care if you call it a conference game, a non-conference game, a division, whatever you call it, that was fun as hell. I want that. Vandy to Conference USA. Jeremy Brinkmeyer. I'm a Grizzly fan. You're going to love JV. He's the man. Hopefully he is a better fit with this team than Steven Adams was. The other thing that's really interesting about that trade is getting rid of Bledsoe and Adams. It frees up a ton of cap space so they can go be active in free agency and pursue a guy like Kyle Lowry. Saints training camp starts this week in Metairie. Yep, Thursday, first practice. Friday's first practice open to the public. Let's see, does culture matter when reviewing accepting new schools for the SEC, or is it strictly financial? You'd have to elaborate, Kenny. What do you think about the Pelicans trade? Talked about that a little bit. With OU and Texas coming, our Kansas will be the Kansas of the SEC. Kind of already are. ULL and La Tech would be good for the Big 12. It's just, Tony, the Big 12 isn't, I think the Big 12 will go the way of the Big East in football. I just think their membership is going to get pillaged and they're not going to be able to sustain. They might exist like as a basketball league, provided they're able to add teams that make sense. Also read this conference shakeup will postpone playoff expansion. Maybe, Stephen. I doubt that, honestly. Because the objective being what it was, or what it is, remember, Greg Sankey was on the committee piecing together the expansion plan. So while he's working on that and knew this was bubbling, let's see, David Wallace, good morning. Tony Williams, Jeff Lee. What happened? What will happen to the Independence Bowl because it's fire. Stephen Miller, imagine softball conference adding OU to the mix. Yep. Glenn Laurie, good morning, Matt. Some people are saying the Saints are interested in trading for Gallup from the Cowboys, but don't you think Xavier Howard is more important because Thomas will return, but there's no second cornerback? I do believe that a corner would be more important than a wide receiver, but here's the thing. You have to make a decision. First of all, you know Mike Thomas is going to be out for 5 games. You don't know how long Lattimore is going to be out. He might be out a week. If he misses 1 game, well then he's back. You signed Brian Poole. You drafted Paulson Adebo. You've got P-Rob. You got C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You know what I mean? Like, you got some dudes over there. Really, the bigger question with that, Glenn, is are you committed to paying Marshawn Lattimore? Because if you're going to pay Marshawn Lattimore like a number 1 corner in this offseason, then you're not going to bring in Xavier Howard because you're not going to pay 2 number 1 cornerbacks, if that makes sense. Let's see, Steven. No, I mean, if adding 20 and more teams to one conference, Texas OU is fine. What's the purpose of having 24 teams in one conference? Again, like, yeah, that's, okay, so there you go. That's what I've been explaining. They're going to do away with the current model. Like, they're all ultimately going to come together and have one big college football. Like this, I know this sounds crazy because for our whole lives, we've thought of this in one term. But, like, you have to understand, the president of the NCAA 2 weeks ago, who his whole career has talked about amateurism and the value, we don't want to be professional. Like 2 weeks ago, the president of the NCAA came forward and said, and advocated for the decentralization of college football. Basically saying, we make rules that y'all hate. This job has gotten too hard. We can't do it well anyway. You should just go do your own thing. Like, that's what's going to happen. And if you decentralize college sports to where the teams come together and collectively govern themselves, like, everyone's going to operate under one system. I mean, that's how it's going to go. Oh, yeah, Brian said about the, Japan's beating the USA in softball. It's not over. That 17-year-old from Alaska that won the gold medal, that was pretty cool. Like, actually, the cool part was they had like a live view of her high school in the gym or something like that. And they were all watching. They were going out of their minds. A bunch of, like, the whole student body was like losing their bleep. It was awesome. Do you think Texas and OU joining will hurt Arkansas and Mizzou? If anything, I think it would probably help Arkansas because they would get a greater presence. Like, that's the thing nobody's thinking about with respect to recruiting is you actually get a greater presence in that state too because you get to go play there more often. So I actually think it probably helps. It gives more exposure for those programs in those states. Don Jolibois, good morning. Jeff McKiffin, good morning. Do you think the Pels will go after Cam Thomas? Mentioned that a bit ago. I think it was not a possibility at 10. I think it's a real possibility at 17. When you worry about feelings in PC language instead of sports, this is what happens. I don't know what you're talking about. Charlie, what's your HUDCO email? Matt@HUDCOroofing.com. M-A-T-T, Matt@HUDCOroofing.com. USA lost the gold medal game to Japan. Russia won the women's gym team gold. Wow. Bummer. Father John David Mathurin, college football has the best regular season rain alert. Yeah. You trying to trigger me. Deacon Alec Campbell, how about college relegation like in Premier League, which allows for movement at the bottom to play into playing in the big boy NCAA Football League? I do not know how the Premier League is structured, so I'm totally ignorant when it comes to that. So I don't know that I could give you a really good answer on that. I would have to like learn how that structure exists to understand how it might affect the NCAA. Let's see. Don't mind the 9-game conference schedule. Don't like body bag games, but think of all the iconic moments in games that are legendary. The earthquake game, barn burner, blah, 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 blah. Kirk, I understand. I love the Auburn game too, but Texas and Texas A&M used to play every year. They don't anymore. Missouri and Kansas, that was their rivalry. They don't play anymore. West Virginia and Pitt had the backyard brawl or whatever they called it. The border brawl, whatever they called it. They don't play anymore. Like, I understand your point, but this is part of moving forward with college football. And there's no one to blame but the powers that be in college football that created this absurd structure more than 100 years ago. The fact that you have, like, this is the problem. The fact that college football has allowed old men in ugly jackets trying to make money off of their bowl game to determine the outcome of college football's postseason has put us in this situation. The fact that we have allowed the structure of college football to be such that you play these stupid body bag games and have these awful, inequitable regular season schedules has brought us to this breaking point. They kept growing college football financially in a way that was totally inequitable, in a way that was awful for the student athletes. And now you're at this breaking point where student athletes understand what their leverage is, and college football has to adjust the way they should have done 100 years ago. And it's all happening right now. Like, I understand your point, but you know what? I love the Auburn game. But is college football as a whole going to be better off if LSU only play, and that means LSU plays Auburn every other year? Yeah, I'm good. I'll be cool with that. That's fine. We can play Auburn every other year. Okay. So it doesn't happen every year. And then every other year, you'll really love it when you get to see it, man. Like, you don't determine the structure of a major sport because of your feelings about what happened 30 years ago when Hodson threw the ball to Fuller. You have that memory, and that's great. And you know what will happen? You'll create new memories. Like, you know what kids who were watching the 2019 season are going to remember? They're going to remember 3rd and 17. That wasn't a conference game. That wasn't an iconic rivalry. That was a great moment. Jacob Hester, 4th down against Florida. Like, LSU and Florida isn't a storied rivalry. They didn't start playing every year until like the same thing, until like the 70s. Like, or the 80s even. It's not a storied historic, and who cares if it was? Like, you're gonna have great moments regardless. Like, you're gonna have those, and you'll create new moments based on who you play. You don't determine the structure of a sport because you wax poetic that Matt Flynn threw a touchdown pass to Demetrius Byrd in 2007. That's not how you govern a sport. It just doesn't make sense to do it that way. LSU used to play Tulane every year. We crying that LSU doesn't play Tulane every year in that great rivalry anymore. Somehow we manage. Trivia. Matt, take it easy on Kirk. You know the Army will always be in their feelings. You always take that chance, don't you? That shot. Spurge, what's up? Thomas Lamont playing Auburn every other year just means it'll take them that much longer to win in Tiger Stadium. Well, they play in Tiger Stadium, but yeah, no, I get your point. Yeah, good point. Everyone's focused on football, understandably. I'm also excited about having Texas and Oklahoma on the baseball schedule. It's true. Cliff Nelson, what's up, man? Good morning. All right, y'all, I think we are about done. Done. Nick Pellissier, new nightcap with Scone game. Every time Matt mentions men in the Men in Black light thingy, get yourself a new pour. Might have an opportunity to mention that a bunch. The flashing light thing, the memory eraser. Let's see, NCAA 20 team, North, South, East, West Football League, sign me up. Yep, we'll win. Saints used to be in the same division as the 49ers. I get it. Humans are resistant to change. But my job here is not to be combative. My job is to convince you not to be up in your feelings and to accept the fact that change is coming and much more of it. And we're all going to be okay. Y'all, we're all going to be okay. It's going to be good. Like, we're going to still get to watch LSU play major college football games with huge ramifications. And you're going to get to go to some stadiums that you've never seen before and get to see new traditions and pageantry and fun and fight songs and it's going to be awesome. Like LSU playing a conference game in Norman. Yes, I'm good. Let's do that. Let's see that. LSU not having to wait 15 years to play in Athens. Yes, I would love to go back to Sanford Stadium. Let's see that. LSU getting a more regular opportunity to kick the crap out of Vanderbilt and Tiger Stadium? Yes, give me that. All right, y'all. Trivia, what hour was Chip Brown? It was the beginning of hour 3. So if you go to yesterday's AFR, at the beginning of the first segment of hour 3. Okay, we're done, y'all. As always, shout out to Brock, Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button. Smash that like button, please. Appreciate it greatly if you smash the like, subscribe if you haven't done so yet either. Subscribe to the Matt Scone channel. Appreciate y'all. Okay, y'all have an awesome day. AFR 3, Locked on LSU, coming up a bit later. Please also, it's a huge help if you haven't done so yet. If you would please subscribe to the Locked on LSU podcast. I'd appreciate it greatly. Okay, y'all have an awesome day. We'll see you later. Peace.